Hello everybody and welcome back to another review. So recently I did something I've been meaning to do for a long time and I went and got my library card. I'd had one a long time ago but it had actually snapped in half and I lost the pieces and it expired. There's a whole long story and basically I didn't have one anymore. And with the amount that I could potentially spend on books and with the amount of books that I read in general, it was a really good investment for me to get a library card. So I did, and I got a book I'd kind of been eyeing but wasn't sure I wanted to read. And that book is Every Day by David Levithan. David Levithan is an author whom I've meant to read for some time but never really got the chance to. So this was the first book by David Levithan that I've ever read. The basic premise is that you have a boy named A who every day wakes up in a different body. Sometimes he's a girl, sometimes he's a boy. He can be fat, he can be skinny, he can be an addict, he can be totally clean. But he does his best to never truly interfere with this person's life for the one day he will be spending in their body. We come in on one of his days where he is in the body of a high school student and he interacts with this guy's girlfriend and ends up falling in love with her. He then spends the rest of the book and everybody that he's in thinking of her and trying to interact with her. He does eventually tell her the truth and she discovers whom he is, and there's an interesting look at relationships and romance and things that go on through the book. This was a, for me, very clever premise and I was very curious to see how it was executed. On the whole, I thought it was executed really well. You do have to get past the very basic idea that he's waking up every day in somebody else's body, and from a literary standpoint, I sit there with my critical lens and go, so basically he's molesting this person's life and body for 24 hours. It's a very interesting concept, and I think David Levithan dances around this kind of very touchy premise in actually a very mature way. He straight up addresses that. He has actually addressed these things, like, no, I'm not going to do certain things in people's bodies because that doesn't feel right, and why would I do that to them? I think that's a really, really great idea. The book admittedly leaves off on a very bittersweet, cliffhanger-esque note, and at the time when I finished it, I went, wow, that's kind of gutsy to finish like that. I actually really kind of like it, and I was very impressed with it. And then I found out this is going to be a duology. I had the same instance when I finished Control by Lydia Kang, where, as much as I wasn't really huge on that book to begin with, when I finished I went, wow, nice bittersweet ending. But I knew it was going to be a series, and so the ending didn't feel as powerful. For me, the ending of Every Day was really, really powerful and kind of profound in a way, and I really liked it, and then it was going to be a series. Or at least it's going to be a duology, it's going to have a sequel. And I didn't find the ending as powerful as I'd initially had, which was kind of a bummer, really. But outside of that, it's a really, really interesting novel. I think it was a really great premise that was executed extremely well. And I really like the character of A, and I love all the different bodies he wakes up in, these people's lives that he inhabits for a day. Some of them are really fascinating. With time travel. Sorry, I'm now in different clothes. It's the same day, but I had yoga, so I had to go do that. Yes, I do yoga. No, I don't do it well. But back to Every Day by David Levithan. As much as I rag on things such as insta-love and the way that plays out in young adult, for once this is a concept where the insta-love, which it kind of is, at least on the side of A, really makes a bit of sense. Or at least if it doesn't make sense, it plays out in a way that I'm so willing to forgive it. I think it's because of the fact that you're looking at a character who has quite literally been weirdly alone and yet constantly surrounded in his life. He's never had a physical identity of his own, although he is, in effect, mentally an identity. And that's really all A seems to be. An identity. If you want to really read deeper into the story, you could ask some very serious metaphysical questions about the origin of the soul and consciousness. That's the English minor in me talking. This is a book that manages to bring up some very interesting questions while at the same time telling a really good story. And it's not too often that I see that, especially in young adult literature. Not in any way to rag on young adult literature, because it can be extremely well done. But this is something I'm fascinated to see. If it weren't for the fact that these characters are teenagers, and there are certainly some elements that appeals much more to young adults than anything else, this is a book that could very easily sit out in the adult section of a bookstore. If I were to give it an adult companion, I would say read this and then go and read Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. I think the two of them would actually complement each other extremely well. And if nothing else, their two book covers would look very nice next to each other. But that's all from me today, you guys, and so until next time, cheers.